Well, how about going back to the topic, the title of this podcast is You Don't Know What You Don't Know.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't know what we didn't know about how firms not knowing what they didn't know about how to use their data.
Right.
Was that too circular?
No,
that was a little
shocking.
circular.
Yeah. Right.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Advisor Talk. I am Frank LaRosa, your host, Frank LaRosa, and joined by my blue host.
Yeah.
We're wearing blue today.
Yeah, let's get
blue
the memo.
background. Did you get the memo? We're just going to get into it today. Today is really about you don't know what you don't know. And for those of you that don't follow us, which you should, follow on my LinkedIn account, follow on Stacey's LinkedIn account, Stacey with an E. And also my LinkedIn account, or my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. We're pushing 267,000 followers. Getting there. Giddy up.
Wow. Giddy up.
We had our national Ignite conference last week. And so today we're really just going to talk about that and talk about some of the takeaways and some of the things that we've learned. And so that's why the title of this podcast is You Don't Know What You Don't Know.
Yeah, self-reflection. This is a self-reflection exercise.
Right, it is. And look, they're continuing to evolve. For those of you that aren't aware of what our conference is, we started them about 5 years ago and really was sort of really just almost like an off-site meeting for our team.
Yeah, it's an internal meeting.
Right. And then we started bringing in some sponsors. I'll call them sponsors, really partners, firms that we work with to give us some insights into their business to help our advisor, our consultants, be better at what they do, right? And it's grown. We're really blessed and appreciative of the folks that came. We had Raymond James, Ameriprise, Steward Partners. They were our sort of our elite sponsors, which was great. But then we have a whole bunch of other firms. I don't want to miss anybody, but a number of different people. And over the course of 3 days, it used to be 1 day. Then it was 2 days, then it's 3 days. Next year it's going to be 3.5 days because the attendance keeps increasing. But the whole intent of this is really one of our core values is continuous learning, right? And so that's really what this is all about, is pushing and learning to be better at what you do.
I think just to go back to the title of this podcast is You Don't Know What You Don't Know. I think we went through a period where we were inviting firm sponsors and the response was really favorable, and we thought that maybe initially they wouldn't want to be sort of in the same room or the same presentations as each other, but at the time we were trying to protect everybody from competitive intelligence.
Right.
But the firms themselves decided that they wanted to stay on and collaborate, and that in and of itself became a huge learning experience. And now this year we had north of 25 firms attending.
Yeah.
And they all wanted to stay the entire time. So you don't know what you don't know. I don't think we expected that to evolve like that.
No, we didn't.
Is my point.
Right. And what happened last year was really two people in particular, right? So we had someone, Bob Milligan, who is a OSJ owner, runs a company called 1792, which is Raymond James. They're super great OSJ. He's super nice and is an advisor in himself, and he's done a great job. He stayed for the whole meeting last year, and then Rob Bartenstein, who's one of the founders of Kestra, he stayed. I don't think
that's where it began.
Right, that's where, and so he was like, "Hey, do you guys mind if we stay? If I stay?" We're like, "Okay, sure." And we were really just talking about internal stuff, and their response was, "Wow, I didn't know it was going to be this way. You don't know what you don't know, right?" And so it really morphed to then this year. People were like, "Hey, can we stay for the whole thing?" And we were like, "Absolutely," which has been great because the learning, the back and forth, sharing of ideas, having our team be able to talk to the leaders at these organizations, just to bond with them, just to learn more about the business, and vice versa, to have the firms learn how we do business, why we do business the way we do it, was a separator all sort of under the auspices of helping us get better to help financial advisors. This whole meeting, the whole week, was really all about how do we, as industry leaders, look, we are the largest firm in the industry. We move more advisors, whatever anybody else says in terms of stats, we move more advisors than any other firm in the industry. There is no question about it. It is what it is.
And I think a conference like this allows us to take our level of consulting to a whole other echelon.
Right.
And now being given the power of knowledge, right, from the firms to become the best extension of them as we possibly can so that we can consult better with our advisor clients. I mean, it's literally the sun, the moon, the stars align with a conference like this.
One of the things that we did I did a panel, excuse me, lost my train of thought. I did a panel. We talked about M&A, right? I'm sorry, not M&A. Private equity. And what made the panel unique was that we constructed it in a way where we had essentially half the panel were firms that had PE partners, and then the other half or so didn't have a PE partner. Either one was privately held, so we had one that was we had three that were PE partners that had PE partners. One was privately held, so Founders Financial. Mm-hmm. Right, so we had Sanctuary, we had Kestra.
Yep.
We had
Cambridge,
right? So privately owned, right? Then we had Founders Financial, privately held, and then we had Hilltop Securities, which is public.
Right.
So we had a great panel.
It was really diverse.
Right. And the conversation was essentially, let's address the elephant in the room. Is PE good or bad? And it was a great panel because we had a great conversation. We shot both sides of the argument. But what a consistent theme, where I'm really going with this, was the consistent theme throughout the week was, and this was from the firms as well, is there is no perfect firm for every advisor.
Right. So when advisors say, where should I go?
What's the best firm for me?
That's a really loaded question. And actually, we had a team in our office at the end of last week, on top of it all, that said, okay, so where do you think I should go? And we all sort of stalled. It was sort of like,
well, yeah,
we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. I'd say we stalled, but you're right. So we had a large, they were a $15-16 million team, and we spent 4 or 5 hours with them going over all sorts of stuff. Business planning, marketing strategy, future strategy. This is the difference between us and most other firms, is that we can have these conversations because we can help them with all of these things, right? M&A, branding, data solutions, right? We're going to be launching and announcing something pretty big in a few weeks, May 4th. So, hint, May 4th. Anyway, at the end of it, he asks the question of, so where do each of you think we should go? And our answer, for the most part, was we don't know yet. We're not there.
Well, and that was one of the things with the conference, is that it allows us to become, again, the power of knowledge, becoming just dangerous enough so that when we're asked that question, we can provide just enough intelligence, just enough information so that the advisor can ultimately make the best decision for them, come to their own self-realization. So
right, but we learned, so even for myself, and I've been doing this for a long time, I always learn something new when I'm talking with firms.
Every time.
Right? Which ultimately I put then in my, sort of in my quiver, right, for when I'm working with advisors. And really what I'm going through is I'm listening to firms talk about their value prop or their technology stack or whatever it is that they're talking about, right? Because they're educating us on why advisors should go, choose that firm, right? Whatever the firm is, doesn't matter. I'm thinking through the clients that I work with on, okay, what client does this fit with, right? Oh, I have this client and this is what they're looking for. Oh, this is an important issue for them, right? So I should bring that up. Even though I might already, they may be already talking to that firm with me, it's really helpful to be able to come back to them with more information that may or may not come up during the due diligence process. And that's where the whole, you don't know what you don't know, right? Next year, sort of opening up maybe a surprise a little bit. But next year, we're going to open up our conference to financial advisors because we feel like there's so much great, unbiased content over 3 days that if we had advisors in the room, they would learn so much about the industry as a whole, things that are going on, like PE, right? Pro forma analysis. We're going to do a presentation next year on analyzing, 1099 versus W-2 and going through that scenario. The team that we had in on Friday, if they had the ability to come to that event, they would have come.
Oh, 100%.
They're still learning.
And I don't know of any opportunities within the industry because advisors attend home office visits, right? They go to one firm to view, the inner workings of a particular firm, but they can never do it in one instance. And so maybe what you're suggesting and this opportunity for advisors would allow them to see it, touch it, taste it all in sort of the same conference room.
Right.
There is no opportunity in this industry that allows them to really do that.
Yeah,
in that capacity.
You go to Schwab conference, and I'm not saying ours is going to be as big as Schwab conference, right? But you go to Schwab conference, and it's ultimately they want you to use Schwab.
Right, pick Schwab.
Yeah, they're at the Schwab conference. They don't have Fidelity doing a presentation, right? Or Pershing,
right?
Or another custodian. Our vision is really to host this thing so that advisors can show up. It's a 3-day event, so they can show up to 1 day, they can show up to 3 days, doesn't matter. If you're even exploring, it doesn't have to be necessarily even be exploring moving firms because we talk about other things during the conference, right? There's educational panels. Eventually, we're going to bring in, I can envision bringing in technology companies to talk about, whether it's Salesforce or Black Diamond or Orion, whatever it is, to be able to just spend some time talking to them. If you are in the industry and you plan on being in the industry for a long period of time, you should be educated with what's going on in the industry. If you're a W-2 advisor and you're thinking about one day moving to 1099, you should understand all the moving parts that require a business to run, right? And so some of that, we talk about motivational things. We had a great speaker. She talked about grit. And just
right. That's invaluable.
It's stuff that I don't believe is being talked enough about in financial services, which is why we do it all the time, right? Which is why I do motivational stuff and why my Instagram account has the followers that it has. I think it's, I think I said this in the podcast. I feel like it's my calling to almost be like a leader, to be almost like a manager, like a branch manager, like a good branch manager to the financial advisor industry with these things, because it's not talked about enough. Motivation, spiritual, whether it's spiritual, faith, doing the right thing all the time, all of those things. And so we talk about all that stuff. And it is interesting that when you bring these people in, Kestra brought 6 or 7 people, Raymond James brought half a dozen people, Ameriprise brought a bunch of people. And so what's interesting is that the stuff that we talk about here that we don't think, well, I do think, but we talk about personal development and motivational stuff at our organization, and we do talk about some of that stuff at the conference. And it's always nice to see or hear how meaningful that it is from the sponsors, the people, I'll call them our guests, right? The guests, to hear that stuff, because they don't hear it all the time at their firms. No one wants to talk about that stuff, and so it's just been a wonderful experience. And they talk about how great it was. And I don't want to say I really appreciate it, right? I got a great comment from Rob Barnstein about the panel that we did on PE. And it meant a lot to me because he basically said you're attacking a topic that no one wants to talk about.
Right, because there's a lot of controversy around firms that come in and have one intention but do another.
Well, right. That is like, because it's like the cachet thing to say, to talk about PE being a great thing.
And what the multiples are.
And I would argue, is it? Right, that was the whole point. Is it really a great thing? And so that was the panel. We're going to post the panel. We're going to post it as an Advisor Talk podcast. So you definitely want to pay attention to that, because it was... and he said it's one of the best panels that I've seen in a long time. right? And we had Jim Collins, who's again, someone pretty high up at Kestra, and he was on the panel, right? So those are the types of things that we're doing. But ultimately, what it comes down to is, as an advisor, you need to subscribe always, whether it's our panel. It doesn't matter. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to be addicted to learning.
Yep, good student of the game.
Right.
It's continuous.
Right. It's a good student of the game, right? It's like having a great coach. All professional athletes have great coaches because sometimes you need to see something from a different perspective, or you need to have somebody else show you from a different perspective. We had some firms that joined us that we've done some pretty good business with, and some of the responses that we got when they came out of the breakouts from some of our people were like, "Wow, I didn't know that about the firm." Right?
That they had those capabilities, or a whole team that supports X. Those types of comments were throughout the all full 3.
Yeah, like we do a cocktail reception at the end of every night. This way that you can mingle with everybody and mingle with the team and mingle with the sponsors. That was really great. You and I learned something about United Planners, who we've done business with for many years.
For a long time.
Right. And so I was shocked to learn how advanced their technology is.
Right, how much they've grown, the multi-custodial capabilities that have changed drastically.
Right.
I mean, what 3 to 5 years will do with a firm that has that kind of growth mindset and a totally different ownership structure than anything that
they're advisor
we've
owned.
seen. Right.
So, because I've had some advisors that are they come to me and hey, listen, I want to move firms, but I don't want to go to a firm that is going to be an obvious takeover target, given the whole LPL Commonwealth thing, right? I'm not going to get into that, but that's on advisors' mind. So, okay, maybe you should go to a firm that's advisor owned, where in order for the firm to sell, the advisors have to vote on it. Right?
Yeah.
So you have some control of your business.
Well, I think that's the beauty of the conference.
Not that we're pitching United Planners, but this is an example that I knew they were advisor owned, but some of the other things that I learned, I was like, oh my God, I have 3 clients that I need to have you talk to.
Absolutely. I think it was the opportunity for the diverse landscape that's out there. The amount of diversity that existed even just within the 25 whatever firms at our conference is massive. That's why we think advisors will want to attend next year, because it's the amount of comparing, contrasting, and rubbing elbows with all different types of people in the industry is the huge value add to it altogether.
Yeah, look, when you go to you might be in this process and you get invited to a conference from one of the firms, right? It's a Raymond James conference or it's a LPL conference. It doesn't matter what conference it is, right? But a lot of these firms will have their advisor conferences, and then they all invite recruits to go to those conferences, and that's great. You should do those things, right? But you're sort of in a target. You're sort of in a not a captive audience, but like you're only going to hear what the firm wants you to hear, and most of the people that are at those conferences are good producers. And they're excited to be there. And so maybe you're only going to hear one side of the coin, right?
Right. This is more of an unbiased, agnostic conference.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe we should call it the agnostic conference.
There you
go. But the reason why we call it the Ignite conference is because we're trying to ignite ideas. We're trying to ignite business. We're trying to ignite your personal and professional development.
Ignite your learning.
Right. Ignite your learning, which then ignites all the other stuff, right? And so that's why we call it. That's why we decided years ago to call it the Ignite conference. I think there's another company that uses. Oh, sorry. I think there's another. I just spit on Stacey basically. There's another. Sorry, I'm in a mood today. I'm a little fired up this morning. But there's, it's important to us. This is one of those things that we're doing. It's a lot of work, and we're sort of exhausted afterwards. It's like going on. It's like being not a rock star. I'm not saying we're rock stars, but I would imagine what a musician. I know your daughter's a singer, but imagine it's like going on tour, and after you're done on tour, you're like shot.
I was exhausted this weekend just from, the excitement of it all. And it's 3 days of nonstop conversations, but it's exciting. It's like, what can we take away from this conference to utilize with our financial advisor clients? So by this weekend, we were exhausted. And this week is kind of a regroup week. Yeah. It's just marinating in the information, organizing the information, right? We even talked about how are we going to put all this stuff in our library that we have for our employees
knowledge
here.
Is power.
Yeah.
But the feedback was, which I think makes us really, really unique that we're doing this. And the feedback from the firms also was, it would have been awesome if advisors were here, not because they want to like corral the advisor, because the type of information that was being shared was so agnostic and educational, meaning each firm was providing education, an understanding of their business and the type of advisor that fits their kind of business. Not like, well, we want all the advisors. It was like, well, like Kestra, right? They want a specific type of advisor, a sanctuary. They want a specific type of advisor, and Kestra does too, right? Kestra Private Wealth. And they're okay with that. They're okay having a limited... Sorry, someone got a lead. There's a bell. I don't know if you guys heard that.
That's what goes on here.
Yeah. As I say, fish on. For those of us that are fishermen, right? Fish on. Yeah. But no, the point is, sorry, derailed. The point is, what was most impactful to me that I thought about a lot over the weekend was this idea of like, wow, you guys should have had advisors here. What the comment was, you guys should have had advisors here because this would have been really, really helpful to financial advisors in understanding the space, and especially for financial advisors that potentially might be looking to move firms.
Yeah, and I think about the number of times that whether it was one of our firm partners or one of our internal employees said, I had no idea about X, or I didn't have any clue that such and such firm did X. And sometimes those conversations don't come out in the discovery presentations that we do on a regular basis, that it's the collaboration of being at a conference like this or an event like this that really promotes those conversations.
And being with somebody in person.
Being present.
Right. Being present in person, being right present. There, you have these conversations. The other thing, so the other takeaway, and I'll be interested to understand what some of your takeaways were also, but my other takeaway was, when we talked about marketing and we talked about, because I know we talk about it all the time, right? And everybody gets to marketing, and there was a lot of value and interest in the marketing business that we run, but it just showed me how much more room there is and the need for it. How firms are just getting started with this I'll just call it marketing, right? We're at the very beginning of this marketing curve, and I think advisors need to understand that you need to get on board with marketing and branding yourself, and why you need to brand yourself. I was with someone yesterday, a client of ours that we moved a couple years ago, and we were talking about branding, and he said, we know it's starting to work because we were at an event on Sunday, and they're at their country club, and he went to someone, I'll call him a prospect or whatever, about saying what they were up to, and the prospect said, "Oh, I know exactly what you're up to. I see all the stuff that you're doing online," and right then he's like, "Oh, it is working." And that's really the point about branding, is that your people that you may not think are watching you are watching what you're doing, and so you have to constantly put out more and more content about who you are, what your firm is about, why you do what you do, why are you passionate about working with clients, because more people are watching it than you realize. And then the other piece of that was, I'll say shocking in maybe a negative way, in terms of the industry, the lack of not understanding on data. People understood data and why it's important, but the lack of structure that firms have in collecting data was actually a little shocking.
Yeah, I think most firms have a CRM, whatever it is, that is really just a holding tank. I think a holding tank for client information. I think one of the takeaways from our conference likely is, I had no idea that you could be so intentional and proactive with your data the way you describe it.
Yeah.
We're not giving away our secret sauce, but that's what it is.
I think it's shocking how firms operate and have built really, really big firms and aren't even scratching the surface of the data at their fingertips that make them even better. And so for us, it's great. It's great because this is the direction we're going. We talked about a lot of this because I believe, again, part of being a visionary or business owner and 30 years in this business, I believe that this is the direction that the industry is going. And I think that if you are a business owner, if you're at a broker dealer, you're in a senior leadership position, if you, I don't know how you operate without data, right? And
well, how about going back to the topic, the title of this podcast is You Don't Know What You Don't Know.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't know what we didn't know about how firms not knowing what they didn't know about how to use their data.
Right.
Was that too circular?
No,
that was a little
shocking.
circular.
Yeah. Right. We didn't know that they didn't know how little they didn't know.
Well, there you have it, folks.
I know what you know. You know what I know.
I know what you know.
Yeah.
No, but all kidding aside, I think the takeaway from that conversation was I didn't realize that my data could be so powerful. I just don't know how to utilize it to make those decisions.
Yes, and they don't
to be informed.
And some of them don't know where to start.
And they don't know where to start.
Right. Yeah, we talked to a firm, and we're not going to give away the name of the firm, but they're sort of an aggregator type of firm, right? So they have the parent company, and then they have other firms underneath them, right? And they don't know, they don't have data on the firms underneath them to understand how well those firms are doing or not doing, and KPIs that roll up to the parent firm. Or I'll just call it the holding company. To me, that was shocking.
Well, it's like they have blindfolds on, so they're basically running in the dark without
it's like
really
RIA
being able
by
to
accident.
see. You don't have periphery vision. You
Right.
don't have vision in the back of your heads. And I'm assuming 'cause you're the business owner here that you need to have 360 vision. And
Yeah.
without the right data, well, maybe that's a good podcast. Get
Yeah.
goggles. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like a VR. Yeah. Like a virtual reality thing going on.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
But if you don't have information about your data circulating around you in your periphery, behind your head, in front of your nose, then how can you make the right decisions about your business? You can't.
Right. And look, this is a sort of a plug for our business, right? We have a data solutions company service that focuses on this because I realized as a business owner how important it was. I realized after having a conversation with the number 3 at Amazon, who started Amazon Prime, that was his baby, and we were talking about the importance of data, because I was always worried about, it's paralysis by analysis, right? That's what I was always worried. Okay, we have enough. That's enough data. I don't want to spend the next 2 hours talking about data. And when I asked him this question about how important data is in helping you make decisions, and his answer was essentially like, if the data that you're looking at is not giving you the answer that you need, you don't have enough data.
Well, you don't have enough, and it's certainly not organized in a way to help you, progress forward.
Right, because his thing was, by you gathering as much data as you possibly can, the answers will present themselves to you because they'll be obvious, right? And so when I talk to these firms that are buying other firms, whether it's an RIA buying other RIAs or a PE-backed firm buying other firms, or OSJs that are getting advisors to join their firms, like, you need to understand how those firms underneath you are operating. Now, yes, some of it's selfish, right? Because you want to know whether they're successful or not, how much money you're making on them and all that good stuff, right? But as an OSJ leader, you have a responsibility to help those advisors grow their businesses. So would it be helpful if you had an idea of how well their business was doing or not? What kind of workflows that they had to improve their efficiencies? Couldn't you be of greater value to them if you had your own workflows and processes that you can bring to them to help them make their businesses more effective? Imagine that. And I'm just shocked. I'm really shocked with, I don't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how few firms have this stuff dialed in.
Yeah, they don't have any awareness. It's just, again, back to that holding tank analogy. Their data method or their CRM is just a holding tank.
They're OSJ by
right.
accident.
Right.
Like, they're
right.
OSJ by accident, right? I was talking to a guy who has a bunch of advisors underneath him. I said, well, which of the advisors that you give leads to, who's got the best closing rate?
We know the answer.
We know the answer. Here, he didn't know the answer.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so, and then, well, tell me about, we were talking to the team that came in on Friday, that they get a lot of business from referrals. I'm like, okay, well, which one of your referral sources has the best closing rate of the referrals? They're like, we
crickets.
We
they
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
They don't know.
Right? I'm like, wouldn't that be helpful to know? So make sure that you're spending more time with the referral source that has the highest closing rate of the leads that they send over to you versus the one that doesn't, right? Like, that's important shit to understand, folks. Sorry, I'm getting a little adamant about this because it's so amazing. I get so frustrated when I hear people not know this information.
Well, I think it's just a lack of awareness. I don't want to say ignorance because I think it's an untapped knowledge base, but I think it's a lack of what to track and how to track it and how to use it the right way, how to display it. I mean,
yeah. So my answer to that is you track everything at the beginning. You track everything at the beginning, and you track it and that's the other thing is you have to track stuff for a long period of time. So you have to start doing it now, right? If you're, I'll give it not an example of an actual person at the firm, because I obviously don't want to disclose any of that stuff. But if you are building your practice, and part of the reason why you're building, I'll call it an OSJ or whatever you want to call it, is to sell it, right? You have to, and if that's a 5-year time horizon, you have to start collecting data now. So when you have that conversation 5 years from now with a buyer, you have 5 years worth of data. It's no different than accounting, right? If you are going to go try to go get PE money in a big way, you have to have 5 years of books and records that are clean, right? So it's the same thing with data. Data can help you get a better valuation of your company, but only if it's good data and only if it's got to go back more than a year, because that's irrelevant, right?
Right, because I think the PE firms or whoever the acquirer is wants to track efficiencies and growth. I hear those two things all the time. Right. How efficient is your process? How are you measuring it? And what's the growth trajectory of your firm?
Right.
No one wants a stagnant, inefficient firm.
And/or problems.
Right. At problems.
I mean, look, if I'm buying a firm with a bunch of underlying partner offices, I would like to see data that shows me that the average growth of those underlying offices is positive, not negative.
Right, because just the opinion doesn't count. Oh,
right.
We're a growing firm.
We're a growing firm.
Oh, we have really efficient processes.
Based on what? Right? Well, right. we grow at 18%. Okay, fine.
How do you know?
But if it's an 80-20 rule, right? So only 20% of your underlying practices are the ones growing, right? So really, you don't really have a good business. I want to see what the full spectrum of all the underlying partner offices that you have, what are their growth rates, right? What is their net new asset flows? There's other things in there, right? How efficient are they in their staff? What's their NIGO rate? How fast do they open an account? Do they fund an account? Well, there's all sorts of things that we can talk about, right?
Client retention. I mean, that's huge.
Client retention processes.
Huge.
And so to me, I know we're getting on another rant here, but I'm very passionate about this because it was shocking to me at the conference how I don't know how inefficient some of these businesses were running, and they're really great businesses.
Yeah, well, they don't have an infrastructure to measure.
And I'm not saying
that's what it
don't
is.
Go there because they're a bad business. I'm talking about sort of business owner to business owner stuff, right? Data on the underlying firms. So anyway, look, I think that we're super excited. We're going to have the conference next year will be around the same time. I think the week of April 20th.
Late April, yeah.
If you're a broker dealer or an RIA and you're interested in learning more about this, because every year we have sponsors that come in and they sort of come in at a base level because they're not really sure what to expect. And every single year we hear the same thing. Oh, I wish I gotten more exposure. I wish I had more time here.
Yeah, I need to do more. I didn't know I could be part of the panel and the presentation.
Right.
And the cocktail reception.
Right.
I could do all those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, obviously, you should reach out to us. And again, the idea here is we really are looking for people that are going to come and help give value add to the audience, which we want to be filled with advisors next year. And so if you are an advisor and you're looking for unbiased, as you call it, unbiased opinions and unbiased information about all different firms. I think we had
an unbiased experience.
Yeah, I think we had over 25
financial services
25
firms.
financial service firms, RIAs.
65 of us. I mean, it was really awesome.
If you're looking for information on that, you can obviously DM us, and you can reserve a spot. We'll probably have some limited space availability. So we certainly have limited space for sponsors. We were sold out pretty quickly this year, which was really another a testament to our team and well, actually the partners that we work with and the firms that really stepped up right away. And we really appreciate their relationship. And the fact of the matter is we look at that stuff, right? We look at how they act. It's this whole like integrity thing, right? How you act when no one's looking. We look at that as it relates to firms as well, right? So how do they act and operate when we're not bringing them a candidate, right? Like, are they still that same level of service? Are they appreciative? Do they view us as a good partner?
Yeah.
Because we look at that like, okay, how you view us, is that how you're going to view our client? Is that you're going to take care
Are they
of our
who they
client?
say they are?
Are they who they say they are?
Yeah, because actions speak louder than words, and we can tell. We know.
And we can tell. And so that means a lot to us, and actions are really super important because everyone can talk a big game, right? But it's the people that spend time. I'll use Kestra as an example, and there was others. So I'm not saying Ameriprise; they've always stepped up. Ameriprise has always been a great partner to us. Same thing with Raymond James. Kestra stepped up. They brought in. They flew in basically.
It's like the baseball team. They brought the baseball.
Yeah, they brought the baseball team. Like they flew in. They did a great panel. They stayed for a while. They had something else going on. But at least they got here, right? I think Rob came from like overseas, and to get into the to come in, right?
It's amazing.
That means a lot because to me, it's the better adage is like how you do one thing is how you do everything,
right? Which
is something I live by, right? And so how you do one thing is how you do everything, and the effort that they put in to come to the event is the same kind of effort they use when they're working with financial advisors, and that's the kind of stuff that we look for.
Yeah.
Right. Because that tells us, okay, that's a firm that for this type of client, they should consider that firm.
We're looking for that consistency.
Right. Yeah.
Are you being consistent with what you do and what you say with us and with our clients who are the center of the universe for us?
Yeah. Or do you just want the lead and you just care about the T12 and the AUM and that's all? That's it. And you're just trying to glom everything.
That's not what we're about. Right. Not even close.
So anyway, listen, that was a fast-paced,
woo, get a lot out,
high energy.
Now I need a nap.
I feel better.
I feel better too.
I feel like I had a therapy session there for a minute.
Duh.
Anyway, listen, if you're interested in learning more, if you want to talk to us about anything that we do, again, we are a unique firm in that we can help an advisor with a bunch of areas. Our mission statement really is to empower financial advisors to make the right move, not just the next move, which means that we can work with you even if you don't want to move firms, right? We can help you with the marketing. We can help you with data solutions and operating your systems. We can help you acquire practices.
Coaching.
If you can do that. If you're looking to sell, we can help you sell your practice because we have a very unique approach to our M&A business, which is unlike these sort of like computer-based programs, which are all, I think, smoke and mirrors. And candidly, what an investment bank does, they basically just bid you out to the highest bidder and not take into account anything as it relates to culture, your team, or your clients. So our firm is very different. And also, if you're looking to do recruiting in a more proactive way, we have our retained services, which is growing continually. It's been one of our cores. Again, all to help you grow either your practice or your business, whether you're an RIA or an OSJ. We are the only firm that can help you in all those areas, whether you want to move firms or not move firms. So if you have any interest in learning more, you can call the queen of our growth accelerator package. That's what we call it. Stacey Frank.
Yeah. Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the E. And my number is 856-816-6322. Or the CEO with the mostest, Frank LaRosa.
Yeah, Frank at Elite Consulting Partners. Host with the most. Host with the most. Am I hostess? No, hostess. Host with the most. Frank at eliteconsultingpartners.com. You can also, again, DM me on my Instagram account, which you should be following me, which is franklarosa.elite. And I would love to hear more about what your thoughts are on this podcast. So leave a comment below, and we'll get a conversation started about you don't know what you don't know. And I would love to hear about what you don't know that you've learned. Anyway, see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.